Well, hello, and welcome to your weekly dose of higher consciousness. I'm your happy host and trumpeter of truth, Liz Gracia. And today I have a great, interesting topic today that came to me. And when things just come to me, I'm like, we're going to go with it. And what the topic is today, it's how to let go of adversity and how to let go of attraction. So it's kind of like the dance of the Shiva, It's okay if I do, if it's okay if I don't. And learn to be happy regardless of whether aversion is in your face or attraction's in your face. And what the heck is attraction, and why wouldn't you want attraction? I'm sure you can understand why you wouldn't want an aversion, but we're going to talk about both of those today. So, and I have a great kind of story that kind of led me down the path of realization that teaching the audience about letting go of an aversion and an attraction is kind of an more advanced spiritual understanding. And I felt like when I got it, other things like kind of lined up more easily for me when I understand the whole letting go of aversions and attractions. So I feel like if you can get this, taking care of other little letting go things along the way will come about much easier with this understanding. So before I get started on discussing our topic, I have all kinds of fun things I do every week. The first one is to be grateful for our sponsor, the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com, which is an online community of alternative, holistic, and transformational service professionals, as well as a fantastic resource for weekly online events from renowned teachers, authors, speakers, scientists from around the world that provide these weekly online events that then turn into nice 7 or 8 week courses. But the original 1 hour webinar is well worth everyone's while if there's a topic that's of interest to you. And we typically have 2 to 3, more than that, typically have 6 to 10 events going on a month, which is like 2 to 3 a week. So if you go to the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com and check out the events page, you'll see what's cooking up every month. We also have online courses that we sell in what we call our consciously curated lighthouse store. And we sell other things too that's all related to mind, body, spirit, health, transformation. So you want to check out the Lighthouse store as well. So the tagline for your weekly dose of higher consciousness is simple steps for how to be happy and love yourself and learn to let go of all the negativity. And Dr. Hawkins has a book that I share every week that's called his Book of Slides. And he has what's called his 101 Ways to Happiness. And I figured with 101 ways and an episode every week, I might as well share what he suggests as a way to happiness. And we're on number 10 this week in his list of 101 ways to happiness. And number 10 is differentiate narcissistic goals from mature goals. And a narcissistic goal, an example of a narcissistic goal, an immature goal, would be to want to become rich and famous. And that's kind of an immature goal. As opposed to an example of a mature goal that Dr. Hawkins gives is to be happy no matter what, which is when you understand the levels of consciousness on the happy side, which I did a whole episode on how to be happy. I think it's episode number 8. Go check out the episode on happiness and understand how much power there is in being happy. It's huge. And I can attest that when you start to let go of negativity and you're happy regardless, you're happy regardless, which is kind of a nice thing. It doesn't matter. You're doing the dance of the Shiva. Oh, if it shows up, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. And Dr. Hawkins showed this on one of his videos, the dance of the Shiva, It's kind of like, oh, it's okay if it does. It's okay if it doesn't, whatever. It's all good. Doesn't matter what shows up. Just like the guest house, Rumi's poem of the guest house. be grateful for whatever shows up. So that's the number 10 on the list of 101 ways to be happy. Set goals for yourself and write them down. And it's been proven, and you can find this on research on Google. It's been proven that those who set goals regularly and write them down tend to earn 9 or 10x over their lifetime more than people that don't set goals. And the percentage of people that set goals and write them down is like 4% of the population. So if you're doing that, you already have an awareness of how to manifest what you want in your life. It's putting your focus on what you want, writing it down, and reviewing them on a regular basis. This is how manifestation really kicks into high gear. And if you let go of lower level emotions and lower level goals, like to be rich and famous, hanging on to being rich and famous has underlying energies of you're not good enough. There's underlying stuff running in your consciousness that wants to prove something just to feel better and to let go. If you let go of feeling unworthy, any goal of being rich and famous would fall by the wayside because it doesn't matter anymore. You're happy regardless. So write down your goals and see if they're immature or narcissistic goals with underlying currents of unworthiness. That would be a sign. How do I feel about this goal? Do I want this goal because I feel so unworthy right now and I want to prove myself, right? That you can answer that question. That would give you an indication. As opposed to setting a goal for the joy of it and the appreciation of the experience of having that come into fruition. It's different energies, different feelings. And these higher level energies are what brings into manifestation what you want, and letting go of those lower level feelings of unworthiness, not good enough, and wanting to prove yourself. I know what those like. You're not alone. I too, we all have this running, but you got to be willing to step into this courage and accept, yes, I see that I'm doing this. I'm willing to let go of these unworthiness things that we all have. I mean, unworthiness is insidious in our world. That's okay. We're an evolving consciousness. It is what it is. Okay. So every week also I do what I call your weekly dose of higher consciousness quiz. And today's going to be kind of like a history lesson. It's kind of interesting. Dr. Hawkins does calibrations of famous figures throughout history, consciousness calibrations. And today I want you to think about or feel your way into who do you think is of higher consciousness on this list of 3? There's always 3 things to think about. And today we're looking at, let me get my little Wikipedia up here so I can describe each of these people too. You might not know who they are, but I think you probably will. The first one is Mahatma Gandhi. And he was an Indian lawyer, anti-colonial nationalist, and political ethicist who employed non-violent resistance to lead the successful campaign for India's independence from British rule, and in turn inspire movements for civil rights and freedom across the world. Now, last week's episode was all about Mahatma Gandhi's quote, "How to be the change you wish to see in the world," and his level of consciousness. So if you listened in on last week's, you know the answer to his level of consciousness, but you might not know who is of higher consciousness this week. And by the way, Mahatma Gandhi was born in 1869. Wow, I did not know that. And he was assassinated in 1948. So that's his generation. He was in the generation of, and it's also come to my attention that he is part of what is known as the White Brotherhood, which is a level of consciousness in spirit. It's a spiritual domain. And it's actually a very high consciousness, not like the Ku Klux Klan, the White Brotherhood. This is a spiritual brotherhood of which Mahatma Gandhi is supposedly part of that in spirit, as a spirit or soul, as well as Martin Luther King. And the White Brotherhood calibrates at 540 or 60, one or the other, on the map of consciousness. Super high spiritual dimension. And no wonder those individuals came to the world to make a difference, and each one of them made a huge difference. Okay, the second person throughout history that's on our quiz today is Confucius. And Confucius was a Chinese philosopher and politician of the spring and autumn period, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. The philosophy of Confucius, also known as Confucianism, emphasized personal and governmental morality, correctness of social relationships, justice, and sincerity. And he was born in 551 BC and died in 479 BC. So he's next on our list. So who is of higher consciousness, Confucius or Mahatma Gandhi? And last on our list is Aldous Huxley. And Aldous Huxley was an English writer and philosopher. He wrote nearly 50 books, both novels and nonfiction works, as well as wide-ranging essays, narratives, and poems. He was born into the prominent Huxley family and graduated from Balliol College, Oxford, and with an undergraduate degree in English literature. He was born in 1894 and died in 1963 in Los Angeles, California. So Aldous Huxley, he's the third person on our list. All of them are of significantly higher consciousness. I'll give you the answer to the quiz at the end of today's discussion on letting go of aversion and attraction. So I was introduced to the notion of letting go of aversions and attractions on one of Dr. Hawkins' YouTube videos. And if you Google aversion and attraction, Dr. David R. Hawkins, ignore the phone, I'm going to let it ring if you can hear it. If you Google that on YouTube, you may find the episode that I'm referring to. And it really was kind of an aha moment for me to learn to let go of aversions and attractions. So what is an aversion? And I always thought, if you have an aversion, you have an understanding of what you don't want, right? So it's a good thing, you're like, I don't want that. And an aversion could be, a great example is a family member that knows how to push your buttons. So let's say one of your parents says something to you, and every time you have this negative reaction. That's an aversion. You're reacting, it triggers you, and you're like, you don't let it go. You hold on to it. You hold on to the grievance, and it keeps you stuck in a lower level of consciousness, as an example, on that topic. So Dr. Hawkins is suggesting learning how to let go of all your aversions, as well as your attractions. So this is where it kind of flipped me up a little, like, why would you want to let go of your attractions? I thought that's something that you'd want to gravitate towards. It's something that you would want to attract, something in your life. Let's say a loving relationship, a new car, a new house, something that you would buy. And then I start to think about it, because if you have a strong feeling about something that you want, you have a strong desire or cravingness for it, you could be operating from a lower level of consciousness on it. And you definitely want to let go of that. You don't want to be kind of held like Velcro to a lower level attractor field because you're craving something so much that if you don't have it, you're going to be disappointed and life stinks, right? You're going to think life doesn't treat you right. So that type of an attraction, you got to learn to let go. And if there's something that you want in your life, treat it more like as a preference, an appreciation, and a gratitude for the possibility of the experience of having it, experiencing it, whatever it is. So today's lesson is learning how to let go of aversions and attractions. And Dr. Hawkins always suggests kind of calling in God on this one, because both of them really are of lower level consciousness. Because there's a part of you that wants to hold on to both of them. It's a holding on thing. And any type of holding on thing is ego-driven and of lower level consciousness, which has no power for you to manifest what you want. Really, it keeps you in this stuck loop of lower consciousness. So you got to learn to let go of both of them. And what Dr. Hawkins would use for an affirmation is, I'm willing to surrender all aversions and attractions to God. I'm willing to surrender all aversions and attractions to God. And I didn't quite get it when I first started, but I understood the power of it. And I trust Dr. Hawkins because I know that he's of significantly higher consciousness than most of the planet on this. And I'm willing to accept the understanding and go with it. And when you surrender something to God, you're acknowledging that there's way more power at higher levels of consciousness than there is in the energy of aversions and attractions. They're all lower level energies. There is no power there, which is why I did the Letting Go and Letting God episode, which I think was episode 9, right before How to Let Go episode, which you might want to look at both of those because it's all foundational stuff to help you understand how to raise your level of consciousness and be happy and get what you want in life without having to really think about it. So surrendering to God, and I had a hard time with the whole surrender to God thing myself. I really did. So if you're having a hard time, you're not alone. I surrendered to higher consciousness too. It's like, I just surrender this to life. Life is going to go on with or without me. So I might as well let it go, whatever it is, and surrender to life or surrender to higher consciousness. That's what I've been using for a while. But now I'm able to say, I surrender it to God. It's like, all right, I'm willing to surrender to God because I know God exists, proven in consciousness calibrations that God exists at a significant, infinite level beyond the capacity of our mind to comprehend. So I'm willing to accept that. And I understand that it calibrates as true. So with the aversion and attraction thing, the exercise would be to state, I'm willing to surrender all aversions and attractions to God. So I started to play with this. And then life presented me with the opportunity to actually observe it in action. So here's the story. I started watching this, series on Netflix called The Ranch. And it's kind of it's kind of comedy drama. And what's his name? Ashton Kutcher is an executive producer and actor, and along with other well-known actors. And when I first started watching it, I was getting into it. But I noticed like there was a lot of F-bombs being dropped by every character. Every character says the F-bomb. And I'm like, I had an aversion to it. I'm like, oh, F-bomb. And I actually had an aversion to it to an extent where I thought I should write to the producers or see if they have a website so I could throw in a comment that says, you know what? Why are you guys using the F-bomb so much? I think the characters would come by the same way if they didn't say the F-bomb. So that was kind of my aversion to this. But I kept watching. And then something came into my awareness where the aversion for it left me. And the awareness was, and I talk to God all the time. I'm like, God, I know you can bring it to my attention. Bring it to my attention. You're ever present. So it's kind of a response to my acceptance of that. So I'm watching the show, and what comes into my awareness is that this show, using the F-bombs a lot, is demonstrating a level of consciousness of this town, this family, the social interactions. It's just part of this life. It is what it is. It's not a judgment. And I totally got it. And if I was operating from a really high state of consciousness at the time of watching this, or if you come into a high level of consciousness, you will see the beauty of the essence of everyone in that show and their use of the F-bomb. It doesn't offend you. You don't have an aversion. It's a compassionate understanding and lovingness for who they're being regardless. And creation, life, whatever you want to call it, has created this vast contrast of everything under the sun that you could want on this planet. A tremendous level of consciousness range for you to witness, observe, create from, decide who you want to be in contrast to that. And it all has a purpose. And if you came into a higher awareness and you were in this high level, which it came to me like at a different level, an understanding, that you would love and accept these characters and this show regardless because of where it comes from and what it's serving. So now I binge watch The Ranch all the time, and I've come to love and appreciate every character and the level of consciousness that they're operating from. And it's not a judgment, it's just an observation. And it came to I remembered myself. I used to be a restaurant owner, and I'm going to name drop a little so you guys can get to know me a little better. I used to own a restaurant on Nantucket called the Morning Glory Cafe. And I owned it for about 10 years, and I worked in it during college for probably about 4 years before I bought it. And if you've ever had a Morning Glory muffin, they came from the Morning Glory Cafe on Nantucket. But if you've ever worked in a restaurant, especially when I was in my 20s then, it's like a truck stop. The type of language you speak when you work in a restaurant, at least there. In kitchens for sure. There's a lot of F-bombs, S-bombs, all kinds of bombs going off constantly, just like the show The Ranch, right? Same amount of swearing going on, and it's all natural. It is what it is. And I didn't judge myself back then for it, but I look back now, I'm like, geez, I was swearing just as much as a restaurant owner in my 20s. So using that kind of little prayer to God, saying, God, I'm willing to surrender aversions and attractions to you. And I allowed the insights in. I mean, they just came to me so that I could see from a different point of view. And now I enjoy this show and I watch it all the time. So that's how I learned about aversion even more solidly, because it's kind of difficult to let go of aversion sometimes. But that one, I noticed how much resistance I had, and then the resistance went away. And now I'm kind of like enjoying the show. I don't feel the need to change it in any way, which is freeing for one. And who am I to second guess what the creators had in mind, right? Who am I to second guess that, or, give my opinion? Allow them to get, if people keep watching it, they're doing the right thing. That show serves all levels of consciousness. It certainly serves levels of consciousness below it, because if you're watching, each of the characters has something really beautiful and unique and loving to offer everybody. And all of them are tough going. Each one of them has their own struggles and their own lower levels of consciousness. But as you watch it, everyone has something to contribute to the viewers and lower levels of consciousness watching it, something to aspire to. So lower levels of consciousness is not less than. It's a different level that helps everyone else below it and above it to accept, see what you get out of it, and learn from. Now, aversion to attractors. This is can be a little challenging because, you set goals, there's things you want in your life, right? You're setting goals, there's things you want in your life. The problem comes in when you are operating from a low level of consciousness about what you want. And if you don't get what you want and you get disappointed and angry and resentful, this is what it leads to, then you're not going to get what you want. And you're going to continue to operate from a level that you're never getting what you want. And you're going to have a God view that God's punishing and disappointing, which, by the way, I've had. A lot of my life has been driven by disappointment, which is interesting. I wasn't aware of it. I just thought it was part of life. It's like, I turn things around, I make things happen still, but there's a fair amount of disappointment in my life that's come to my awareness. I'm like, geez, I was really disappointed about a lot of things. So learning to let go of attractors is another prayer. I'm willing to surrender attraction to God and allow appreciation in, allow preferences in, soften up the resistance to not getting what you want, soften it up. I'm willing to let go of disappointment. I'm willing to let go of not getting what I want. And the energy of that is going to soften you up so you get to the point where you can affirm, I'm grateful that I have for what I have. And whatever shows up, I'm grateful for. Especially on the positive side, for sure. It's like, oh, look at that. And it reminded me of Alanis Morissette's song about, I forget what it's called. But there's a line in there where you win the lottery, then you die the next day. Win the lottery and die the next day. I can't sing like her. Anyway, she has all these kind of aversion attraction things going on in the song. And it's like, let go of that. Let go of the swing. And when you let go of the swinging, this is aversion, attraction. You let it go, you come like this, and nothing matters anymore. You're not reacting to aversion or attraction anymore. It's a peaceful, balanced level. It's quite enjoyable, I have to say. And when you step into it, you're going to feel it. You're like, whoa. And if you think you can't, I'm telling you, you can. Right? I had some horrific stuff that I will really juicing the victimhood on for quite a while. And I was able to let it go. So that's today's topic, wrap up. Let go of aversions and attractions. And the affirmation is, I'm willing to surrender aversions and attractions to God. I'm willing to surrender aversions and attractions to higher consciousness. I'm willing to surrender aversions and attractions to life, whatever feels good to you. And be open to life showing up to show you where you're having an aversion. Just like the show The Ranch showed up for me. I'm like, oh, this is my teacher, this show. And helped me look more closely at aversions and attractions and how to let them go. Because, I teach this stuff, so I think I know it sometimes. And I'm always learning. So I'm always learning. I don't know it all, for sure. And I'm bound to make mistakes, and I don't calibrate what I'm saying. I'm just faithful that I'm aligned with truth. And my intention is to align with truth when I speak to my audience. And it's the best I can do. All right. So that's the affirmation for this week. Willing to surrender aversions and attractions to God. And see the power of that step into your life and work for you. All right. So, and give it a test. This is the exercise for the week. Just say it, try it, pay attention. Notice when an aversion shows up or an attraction, and practice letting it go. Be willing to be oh, cool. All right. I'm not going to react to that. You can notice the reaction and be willing to let go of the reaction first, right? You might have to do that. You might have to break it down. So the reaction, someone pushes your button. It could be at work, could be at home, could be a friend, could be, some crazy driver pushing your button. And everything that shows up in your life is an attractor, it's a magnet to you. So it's a teacher. And notice it. And the first step might be to be willing to let go of the reaction first. Let go of the reaction first and feel that go away, and then let go of the aversion itself. It might have to be a two-step process. That's your homework for the week, whether it's an attraction or an aversion, either one. All right, I'm going to answer the quiz. Who do you think is of highest consciousness? Is it Confucius? Is it Mahatma Gandhi? Or is it Aldous Huxley? Think about that. Let me look at the calibrations so I tell you give you the right answers. All right. We'll start with the lowest level calibration. And by the way, none of these are low level at all. They're all high level, and they're higher, probably in the top 10 or 5% of the levels of higher consciousness that any of us could ever reach. So Aldous Huxley, he is the lowest one at 485 on the map of consciousness. That is not anything to dismiss. 485 on the map of consciousness is significant. It's the level of the mind. And just to put it into context, people that are genius level, like Albert Einstein, Sigmund Freud, they calibrate at 499 on the map of consciousness. Aldous Huxley is up there at 485. The genius level is a quantum leap up from 485. This is logarithmic. So 10 to the 485th power versus 10 to the 499th power. That's a quantum leap in power still. Next up, Confucius. Confucius calibrated at 590 on the map of consciousness, which is above 500. He's in the spiritual domain, the spiritual nonlinear domain. And at 590, Confucius is operating higher than the level of a saint. A saint typically calibrates at 575 on the map of consciousness, but not quite at the level of enlightenment, which is 600. So at 590, he's close, but still, to go from 590 to 600 on the map of consciousness is a quantum leap if you know your logs. Log, 10 to the 590th power and log 10 to the 600th power is a huge leap. Nonetheless, I always looked at Confucius as a Buddha type, and he was close to being an enlightened human being. Enlightenment starts at 600. Mahatma Gandhi is of the highest consciousness on this, and he is significantly of higher level consciousness than the other two at 760 on the map of consciousness. He operates well above the level of the mystic, which is 700 on the map of consciousness. And I spoke more about him on last week's podcast and videocast. But the mystic calibrates at 700. And what's going on at the level of the mystic is that they are no longer susceptible to non-truth. They're essentially a vehicle for divine truth and grace. And whatever they speak typically, is of truth, because they're operating from a very high spiritual dimension at 760. So that's it for this week's quiz. How did you do? Did you know who was of highest consciousness? I wouldn't have known, I didn't even know the answer to this till I just read it, that Gandhi was so significantly higher in consciousness than Confucius. So that's it, gang, for today's weekly dose of higher consciousness. Again, I don't know what I'm going to do next week. I'll try to make a calendar so I can keep you heads up, but I'm hoping to make them all interesting and informative. And I did have an idea about doing how to let go of fear, because I have some great stories to share on some fears I didn't know I had and how they left me. Like, I might have to do that one. I'll write it down. I may do that next week. I may not. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below or send me an email to liz@trumpeteroftruth.com. If you like to listen to our podcast and you want to subscribe, head on over to trumpeteroftruthradio.com, and you can subscribe to our email channel at trumpeteroftruth.tv.com. And again, I want to thank our sponsor, the Mind, Body, Spirit Network. Please go on and check that out. There's a lot of good stuff happening over there to help you raise your level of consciousness and shift into higher levels of being. And I think that's it for the day. There's something else, hanging up in my head. I don't know what it is. Sayonara, you guys. Here's to raising your level of consciousness, and I'll see you next week.